Do we have audio today or not? Is the big question here that we need answered. Can you hear me okay? Let me know in the comments. We've actually never had that problem before that we had Monday of no audio. Let's see. Let me know in the chat. Can you hear me? Hello, Shams. Oh, good. Susan, thank you. I'm asking over and over. Thank you for letting me know you can hear me. For those of you who are not on the live stream Monday, I could not get audio to turn on no matter what. So, Barbara, hello from Arizona. So great to have you. What we're talking about today is I'm going to be just sharing a few pieces from my lace collection that I thought showed a good example of a wide range of some lace embellishing techniques that I thought you guys might would like to see. Thank you for my first like of the day today, Teresa. Thank you so much. So we're going to be looking at some of these pieces of my lace collection. You guys let me know if you like this format. I personally love it, but I'm kind of a lace junkie. I have boxes and boxes of lace that I can bring out and show you, and they get even more elaborate than these. So we can absolutely plan that if you want to. The whole point of it, though, is I'm going to get real close with it so you can reverse engineer how these were embellished so you can embellish your own laces, all right? So let's start with the foundational idea here is you're going to start with, when you're working with a lace, you're starting with some type of background, okay? And this is a woven lace. It came off of a loom. This is a French lace. And the way you can tell is that this background is not just running completely behind here. Like when the loom got to here, it changed what it was doing. Do you see that? It's not just appliqued on to the background. All right, so let me show you, for example, this is a more mass manufactured lace that we see nowadays on wedding dresses. If you get a wedding dress somewhere in the price point of like $1,500, $2,000, it's probably going to have this kind of lace on it. And what it is it's that tulle background, and this is an embroidered lace. They literally just put it under an embroidery machine and stitched, if you can picture my imaginary embroidery machine, they stitched this lace on. So here's the back side. And so the background is constant because this is embroidered to the tulle. Good day, Kate. You made it to a live stream. This is amazing. Other side of the planet and our timing aligned. It must be very, very early for you, huh? So this is another way that you can tell it came off of a loom is look at the gaps here compared to this background. See that? So they're able to make these darker points in the image by not putting it as close together, okay? So this is a little more densely woven. And just a second, let me check and see if my assistant needs me for anything. Everything good? Okay, nice. All right, so this is your basic starting point for lace. So if you want to embellish some lace, let's say you take a piece of lace like this and you really want to make this flower pop. This right here, this image that you see in it is a great starting point for that. So this is the lace that I used on my example thumbnail. This is heavily embellished, but can't you see how they could have started? See down in here? Started with a lace that had that picture of the flower and the leaves. This is the back side. So they went in and heavily embellished. This is with like needlepoint embroidery. See how they stayed within the lines of the cording? And then they went in and added beadwork. The beadwork does a couple of different things. When you're thinking about beadwork, you're going to think about scale, the size of the beadwork for what you're trying to accomplish. Okay, so this is like a larger stone. But when you're doing these outlines, they're looking at the scale and the color. Okay, so they can bring in different colors, different textures, and they're all going to reflect light differently. So you're going to want to make these choices when you're embellishing your lace. All of these sequins, there's different ways of putting this in. Do you see how this is like kind of like the stack of dimes you see with welding? That's beautiful. See how cohesive that reflection is? All right. So then you can also do sequins that are seen a little bit more in isolation so that their roundness shows off. Look at these pieces here. These are just sew on embellishments. They're metal leaves and they've got the little holes bored into them. I've even seen people take little trinkets of things that they want sewn into their embroidery and just take a very little Dremel and drill the holes in it so that it can become sew through. So here's a great example of just taking an ivory basic lace. You can tell it was a true French lace. And through all of your embellishments, turning it into something beautiful. Embellish is the actual brand of this lace. They're out of France. They're from Solstice. They're no longer in New York City that I know of. I think they're only in France now. But all of these are handmade laces. This is not a machine doing this. This is someone spending hours and hours embroidering. So the reason why I wanted to show you this collection was because you can, as I said on here, you can reverse engineer and learn from what other people have done so that you can make your own custom laces. Now, you know I love this, a monstera, right? Do you see the monstera? Now with this, they used a couple of different techniques that we didn't get into in the last example. There's lots of flat sequins going on here. They changed the color and the size, so the scale, but they also changed the density. Look how dense this is versus this. And look at their thread choice, the color of the thread. So this is not quite as pronounced as this. This is quite a contrasting thread. And the thread that they embroidered this on, a lot of times we reach for a thread that's more invisible or isn't, you know, a big part of the scene. But this one is a contrasting thread that's very much a part of the finished look. It's contributing to the rhythm that is within this piece. So you can see these sequins here are like little cups. They're shaped entirely different. And they made a flower, okay? So there was a flower shape. You can see the original cording outline that was on this background lace. And they made a very distinct flower by doing 3 different ranges of sequins in here. Kate, thank you so much for the green hearts. You know, I love it. She says, oh my goodness, it's 3 a.m., Kate. I worked on a Palace couture gown. The flowers of the lace were beaded, like the movement of folds of petals. Just stunning. It really is. Kate burns the midnight oil sewing just like I do. How many of you like to sew super late? I know I do. So if people do ask me, where do I find this more modern style of lace that we can cut up and add to wedding dresses when we're altering, my answer is almost always Etsy. Etsy has really great lace options on there. This is so different, isn't it? How fun. So this is introducing the idea of fibers. Look at that, the fiber arts being blended into this. And this is like a pearlescent plastic. Let me get that near my mic. It's like a pearlescent plastic. Can you see that? And that's very easy to sew through, isn't it? It's so creative. This is ribbon. Don't forget your ribbon work. For those of you who were doing any kind of handiwork back in the 90s and early 2000s, you remember how popular that ribbon work was, where you could make like roses and whatever else with ribbon work. And we were all embellishing our pillows and whatnot with it. Obviously, they also have some of this more like a hardware kind of thing that they put on here. This is striking a very strong modern look, isn't it? It's just beautiful. Can you imagine, though, this being worn to like a black tie gala or something? I love this, the fiber arts being mixed in. And I don't know if this is a synthetic or not. We could do a burn test on it and tell. If you're liking this, please hit the thumbs up for me. It will help YouTube to know to push it out so other people can learn about sewing and lace as well. Here's more of that ribbon work. So we're gonna flip it over again and see what background we had. And I want you to see how many stitches. This was worked on for hours. But look at how beautiful. So now we have a larger sequin. This is giving a bigger flash of light. You see how dynamic that is? And this has a finish that we call AB, which comes from Aurora Borealis, which is like the Northern Lights. It's like this unpredictable color shift. Isn't that lovely? And then all of these flowers are made either out of looped ribbon, like loops of ribbon that were pressed, or you've got these petals that were cut out and the edges were heat sealed. You can see that it's a little bit darker on the edges. So they're heat sealed to prevent fraying. Then the center of these blossoms have these in there. What a creative way to make flowers, huh? So that's how this one looks. And you can see too some variation in the background. So it's a little more open for this wavy part. Then it goes to a little more sheer. And then you've got this rough open area again with some leaf work in there. So there is that one. You guys share in the comments. You can help each other out. Who's some of your favorite lace suppliers? I do have to mention my friends at Gelmore Lace in New York City. They're amazing to work with. They're my French lace suppliers. If I needed a heavily embellished lace, I would definitely reach out to Solstice for their Embellish line. So it's kind of cool marketing, cool branding. Solstice Embellish. I thought that was nice that they had that for us to remember that by. But if I was getting just the regular traditional French lace, it's like Chantilly or Alençon, I would definitely reach out to Gelmore. So with this one, this is not a tulle background. Do you see that? This is organza. All right. And we've all seen this online, how they spiral in the petals real fast. It always scares me. I'm like, they're going to get their fingers. And this is kind of a scatter bead, we call this. Okay. So there's lots of stitching going on the back side of this. And that's definitely part of the design. So I feel like it would be less noticeable if you laid this over a solid ivory, which I do not have with me right now. I feel like the stitching would be less noticeable if you had a solid fabric behind this. If this was an overlay, solid fabric behind that matched that thread would not be quite so noticeable. Now, if you went with, like, let's say you pick up one of these darker colors and put that color satin behind here, all of these squiggles are going to be this activity that you're seeing all over the lace. So depending on how you layer this is going to make a huge difference in how you see the threads that are behind this organza. Take care, Kate. It was so good to visit with you today. Get you some sleep, darling. All right, so yeah, these are all, they appear to be hand-painted silk organza petals. That's how they look to me, because the variation is just so unexpected and very delicate variations. So they look like they were hand-painted. So don't sleep on that. You can always take organza or other fabrics, hand paint them, and then cut them out into your flowers and do your 3D flowers as well as your beadwork and stonework. This is another one that has, sorry, excuse the earthquake. I'm gonna move the tripod just a little bit. This is another one that you've got a very clear background. And look at what they did. This looks like a chiffon that they have purposely frayed to give you these feathery looks. Now, this is such an interesting technique. I pulled this just to be able to talk to you about this. We call this a diffusion. Do you see how there's like a little sew-through rhinestone in there? So what they did is they laid this chiffon over it and kind of choked it out from behind, if you can see that. And then sew it on. That way you get a little bit of flash, but it's a diffused flash. You see that? We see this quite a bit, and that's how they do that. It's called a diffusion layer, okay? So here's another example of that with a different shape stone. It gives you a muted flash. It's not too awfully flashy. Now with these, look at this. This is like your spaghetti strap slash cording that they have just tacked down in this zigzag way. And this is a itty bitty seed bead and an itty bitty sequin sewn at each of these zigzags. So that's how they got that look. Same here, this is more of like your spaghetti strap. And they just zigzagged it and sewed it down. All right, here's some more. This is very like, it reminds you of like a sea anemone or a coral or something, doesn't it? So interesting, all the different shapes that they got out of here. And then you'll notice, you see this a lot with lace, smaller scale, and as you get down toward the bottom and your lace is a little bit more intense, see how much more open work you have here compared to down here? When it gets more intense, the scale of the stones gets larger and you're more heavily applying all of this 3D work. So you want to move with the scale of the lace. So keep that in mind. So if I had to recap the things that you're going to think about when you're embellishing your lace, definitely think outside of the box. You're not just going to use a million seed beads. You've got so many different shapes of beads at your disposal. So you're going to use that. You're going to use fabrics, particularly like lofty fabrics that are really easy to manipulate into 3D shapes. You're going to pay attention to your thread choice. This would be entirely different if this was an invisible thread, right? So that makes an impact. Don't sleep on ribbons, and think about the element of color versus having just a sheer sparkle, a clear sparkle. So we see here fiber arts and plastic mixed in. So I've even seen people use recycled goods from around the house in their laces. perhaps to tell a story with their lace. And then, of course, the color and scale that we talked about, and how you can use sequins to fill in the picture or to even draw the picture, to outline the picture. And here is also the embroidery and needlepoint that you can use with more of like a cross stitch kind of thread. So I don't have an example of this in this stack, but you can also use metallic threads. They go a long way as well. I hope this helped you guys today. If you have a question, pop it in real quick. Otherwise, we're going to see you Monday. Don't forget, we do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every week. We're trying to go now to the end of the year as long as it continues to benefit the channel. I hope you guys have a lovely day. It was great spending time with you. Bye.